Right. This is Incredible Hulk 206. This is it. Hulk goes on a rampage, more savage, more brutal than ever before. That is the cover saying it, not me. In my opinion, he's not that savage or that brutal. He's a bit perturbed, but he's actually more despondent and defeatist for a lot of it. Lovely cover here. David Cockburn, one of Hulk's most iconic Bronze Age covers. So Hulk, he isn't very happy. He is angry. He is on a rampage across America. He is a man on a mission. But the military are getting on his tits with all their jet fighters and their helicopters and their tanks and the National Guard. And Hulk obviously makes short work of all of them. This is quite light on story, but dense with backstory. And I will explain that during this subplot sequence with Doc Shanna and General Happerblap. Nice scene, by the way. The downtime scenes in this. The supporting character pieces. They are nearly all great. Hulk is going through some shit right now because, well, long story short, Hulk's alien wifey has died. And now he is mad about it. Short story long is that it all began in a crossover between the Avengers and Hulk in 1971. An alien bad guy called Psyklop captured Hulk and wanted to use him as a power source for evil stuff. And he chose to shrink Hulk down for easier management. The Avengers interrupted, and I just love this page here. Psyklop Vision. I feel like I need to track down this two-parter. I have the Avengers issues right after it. I might as well get these, right? Oh, also of note, first time we see Falcon Man work alongside the Avengers. He is still in his green and orange costume. That is how early it is. While the Avengers fight Psyklop, though, Hulk is still being blasted with the shrink rays, and he ends up shrinking so small that he shifts through to the Michaelverse. Basically, in Marvel, when you shrink past the point of comprehension, you transport yourself over to another dimension called the Michaelverse. It's not worth explaining too much, and you'll be hearing more about the Michaelverse next week anyway. God, there's a lot of backstory here. Sorry. On the plus side, it keeps me from complaining about Kurt Busey. Our second part is in Hulk 140. In that, Hulk is lost and stranded on a planet within the Michaelverse called Kai. Hulk encountered and battled giant warthogs, and upon defeating and chasing away one, he was celebrated and welcomed by the people of Kai as their hero. In a subatomic world, Hulk found acceptance and happiness, and he fell in love with a princess called Jarella. And it's a, hey look, Hulk found happiness story, but then it is a tragedy because it is a Hulk story. He is eventually located by Psyklop, who attacks Kai to recollect his captive. And we have another strong image of Cyclops' giant hand breaking through to grab Hulk. In the end, Hulk and Jarella were separated, and Hulk's happiness was again taken from him. Now, with Jarella dead, Hulk has... This is great motivation, by the way. Hulk is going to Doctor Strange. He thinks that his friend and his teammate in the Defenders can bring Jarella back to life with his magic. It makes sense that Hulk would think this, and it is a nice nod to Hulk's affiliation with the Defenders to have Hulk immediately think to get Doctor Strange to help him. Hulk is again attacked by the army, this time while he is on top of the statuette of libertarians. Some people like to track the appearances of the statuette of libertarians in the Marvel Universe and the damage it has received over the years. So here, Hulk tears off its arm and hurls it as a projectile. We might be coming back to this, or we might not. We get some more subplot scenes with Liv Tyler or Jennifer Connelly or whoever played her in the old TV show. Oh, great sequence here with Hulk and a homeless man. The homeless man gives Hulk a drink of his hooch. The artist, John Buscema, brother of the artist of this, fucking nails so much of the moments in this and the next issue. He is the definitive Hulk artist. He handles all the emotions in this story perfectly. So this subplot page, I am using these as the breaking points to talk about the backstory. In Hulk 148, Hulk and Jarella reunited. She arrived in our world to get Hulk's help to save Kai or something. And their relationship was a bit special for Hulk in that Jarella loved both Hulk and David Banner. She accepted them as one whole. She didn't see them as two halves of the same thing. What would happen is every few years, Hulk would be lost in the cosmos for some reason, or he would get teleported away at the end of a story, and that would usually result in him ending up in the Michaelverse for an issue or two. And so we got to see him fight for the people of Kai again and be celebrated as their saviour. Or he would save Jarella, who was always being captured by her enemies. And the other thing is we would get to see him fight giants and monsters alongside Jarella. And then in the end, he would always be snatched away from this idyllic life. So here we have Hulk. He gets to Doctor Strange's house, but Doctor Strange isn't in. And Hulk cannot get past the mystical barriers in place to protect Doctor Strange's house. I will talk about it more in part 2. But one of the great things about this two-parter is that it firmly establishes Hulk's title and the Defender's title as coexisting. There was long a problem where Hulk's appearances in Defenders seemed at odds with his appearances in his own title. Another Doc Shanna scene, Doc Shanna is one of those characters who is like Marmite. I don't know how well Marmite is known in America, but Marmite, it's pretty much known for its divisive appeal. Some people love it, some people hate it. That is like its slogan, love it or hate it. So when you say something is like Marmite, that is what you're saying. People either love it or they hate it. I think that is basically Doc Shanna too. Let's finally get to how Jarella died. It began a few issues before this with another incredibly iconic cover, issue 202. A cover that is more widely known in its censored form, where they have removed the tiny little bit of breast definition from Jarella's chest. Hulk wound up floating between worlds and places again and ended up in the Michaelverse on Kai. And this time he saved Jarella from Psyklop. Psyklop was trying to take over Kai or use the energies of Kai or whatever. Here is another cutaway of Hulk captured by Psyklop that I simply want to use because it is a splash page showing a part of the story. After Hulk defeated Psyklop and the people of Kai again celebrated their great hero, Jarella came across the Earth, and she and Hulk were able to be together on Earth. And no, she died straight away, saving a child from a collapsing building. Hulk's happiness lasted all of 2 minutes. There is a What If issue based on it, written by Peter Gilbert, and how do I say this without coming across like edited by Marky Mark J. Oh, another tremendously classic and famous cover to that issue of What If, Barbarian Hulk. So many legitimately brilliant Hulk covers related to his forays into the Michaelverse. But that issue of What If is important for a few reasons. The first being is that it establishes how the Michaelverse and all the various subatomic dimensions all are linked, and it is written by Peter Gilbert. Peter Gilbert writes the comic that this is set in. It probably had nothing to do with the editor, who was known for that sort of thing. The other bit of new information, and some people overlook issues of What If as a source of information, when a lot of ideas and concepts were first established in issues of What If. The other thing is, it establishes Cyclops' motivations, his backstory, the dark gods who he worships, which were only cryptically alluded to in the canon stories. Oh, and Hulk marries Jarella. This was actually the last time we saw Psyklop until he returned in 2010 when they did a Michaelnauts revival where they were not called the Michaelnauts anymore. Jarella, on the other hand, often appears as a reminder of these stories, or she is briefly resurrected. So finally, that is all the fucking backstory done for this. We have more quality staging here. Hulk is sitting on the pavement outside Doctor Strange's house, and we zoom out to show that the National Guard have surrounded him. If you like action and Hulk smashing things, you get plenty of that in this, as well as acknowledgements on these pages that both Fantastic Force and the Avengers are not available to do anything about this rampaging Hulk. Fantastic Force are off fighting Galactus Man on Counter-Earth. And it's not said where the Avengers are, but based on dates and release, let's say half of them are back in the Wild West, and the other half are on the Justice League's alternative Earth. As for other heroes, Spider-Man is busy fighting the Human Fly with Twinkies, so he couldn't do anything about Hulk. And finally, the Defenders show up. I enjoy this issue. It is a bit basic, but it's nice to have a good, accessible issue where we see Hulk hounded by the military. And next, we will have a decent smackdown with the Defenders, which also continues to provide some of the emotional beats that this issue hits on. My one and only criticism is that the Defenders featured, at the time, Luke Cage's was a member of the Defenders, and he is not here. And truthfully, him fighting Hulk would be a fantastic thing that I think everyone would want to see. So let's talk about that statuette of libertarians. In Incredible Hulk 210, a couple of months after this one, they publish a letter by Kurt Busey, who in typical Kurt Busey letter act form, shits on this issue and forces everyone to listen to him and pay attention to him, and he suggests his own rubbish ideas and complains about things that only matter to him and doesn't say a single positive or complimentary or thoughtful thing about the issue. He moans that the statuette of libertarians was broken and that it is as shit as when DC Comics has stuff like that happen. He complains that Hulk is always fighting the military and the National Guard, and that it's boring, and that Hulk should fight all these random one-off Monster Age characters, all of whom, 30 years later, Kurt is still fucking holding on to, and has Hulk fight in his shit Defenders run. And lastly, he complains that the Defenders are out of character for trying to stop Hulk because Hulk is their friend. And if the stupid, useless prick fucking cared about anything besides his own voice, he would have, well, first, fucking waited to see the next part where there's fucking nice moments with the Defenders being his friends. But if he also bothered to read this a second time, he would realise that what they say here isn't in any way hostility directed at Hulk. It isn't threatening, it isn't them swearing to kill him, or anything like Kurt Busey says it is. No, Hulk, it is we who have found you. For the past several hours, you have been tearing this city apart, and the Defenders have come to put a stop to it. Where's the implication there that they are not his friend or that they want to cause him harm? They want to stop him from rampaging, but that's it. there's no hint of what Kurt Busey says. That is, he always does this, he and his crew. They know that people aren't going to fact check them. By the time that his letter is printed, this issue is a thing of the past. He gets to have the final say on it. His letter. His letter reminds people of the story they read a few months ago, but now, with his slant and his bias that it was shit and the defenders were out of character to try and stop Hulk's rampage. I wasn't going to talk about him. I wasn't going to give that obnoxious prick any more time. Especially in a video about a good issue that a old cunt like him only sees as fuel to complain about. But I'd be doing you all a disservice by not pointing out that Kurt Busey, before he was a writer, before he had any authority, back when he was a shit stain that had no pull, he was still a petty little toxic fan. And that he ever got let into the club is deflating and exhausting, and it makes me feel like Hulk in this issue. I derive fun and enjoyment from comics, or I try to. He derives ego and negativity. This is a really fun comic. Most people can pick this up and enjoy it. Part 2 is good as well. And there is only truly one person in the world who would vent and complain about such a solid issue, and you don't want to be like him. Kurt Busey never got any enjoyment out of comics. All he ever got was enjoyment out of his own nasty little voice and forcing it onto people. I'll give this 7 thumbs up because it is worth 7 thumbs up. And you know what? If you don't like it, that's fine. If you're not enjoying Hulk comics at the time and haven't for a while, why not stop reading them? Why not go read something else or find a new thing? Don't fucking write in and preach your bullshit and make everyone listen to your shit ideas. People can click off my videos. They cannot click off your letters, Kurt. They have to sit through your shit, unimaginative, small-minded ideas, and then 20 years later sit through your shit, unimaginative, small-minded retcons. I hope the migraines get worse. I don't want you to die, Kurt Busey, don't worry. I don't want you to die, and for everybody to sing your praises and say how you saved comics in the 90s. No, I want you to live with painful migraines for another 20 years, unable to write due to the pain. And then for you to die of old age, and everyone has thankfully forgotten that you were ever a writer, because you never were one. Part 2 sometime next week, yeah?